Hello, my YouTube world. This is Johnny Mo. And what we're going to do with this series, it's going to be all-encompassing, but we're going to try to do a video on every video, a question and answer. So I've got 5 questions. They're pretty similar in nature, so I'm going to do a quick video about the liability and about the lawsuit factor. All right, so here we go. The lawsuit factor and the liability factor are tied hand in hand. The lawsuit, there's so many lawsuits going on in America concerning snow removal and slip and falls and everything else that encompasses that aspect. Now, the one thing you have to understand, this is the one particular field that you definitely need liability insurance for, because you're working in extreme situations. I mean, you pull into a lot, you lower your plow, you're going along, and you turn around, you hit a sheet of ice, you're going in reverse, and you slip into someone else. You hit them. And you'd figure that your regular insurance would pick the tab up for that you would have on, say you had full coverage on your truck. But because you're snow plowing, that exempts you from that. Unless you have a special addendum that would cover you for snow plowing, which I'm telling you, you will need. Because you're working in, you're more than likely going to get into some type of situation dealing with snow removal that's going to cause you to have to use your insurance, as opposed to the likelihood of you doing something with your mower. And the other thing is that, let's say you're taking care of a mall, any place that has traffic, and ice is able to form, and you were there an hour ago, but it is froze over again, and someone slips and falls. You're liable. I do have a hold harmless clause in my contract. The problem with that contract is there's always a way around it. Lawyers are very good today. They can take that hold harmless and they can just tie a sweet little bow around it, turn around and give it to you. So having insurance, having a good amount of insurance is definitely working, especially considering the client that you have. When you have a lot of traffic coming in and out of the place that you're servicing, you have to be very diligent. And I'm going to explain some diligent things that you need to do, even to the point of looking at gutters. Okay, big snowstorm hits. Okay, you cleared off all the sidewalk. All of a sudden, it hits 36 degrees. The roof starts melting. It melts over the gutters, comes down. Everything's fine during the day, but overnight, it freezes. Freeze-thaw effect. And you got to make sure that this is probably going to happen for a couple days until those gutters are clear. You got to make sure that that client is very specific about paying you to come out and monitor that very situation. Because if not, someone's liable. And I can tell you, this happened to me a few years ago, where a gutter got stopped up, ran down the sidewalk, froze overnight. We had no precipitation. Lady comes to work next day, goes down, hurts her knee. And, so there's a little bit of a situation there. Another thing that can happen is, for people just suing you. Now, my 2 suits, I can't really talk about them, on public like this, but I'll explain in general. One suit was, I believe it was frivolous. I don't know, I don't know all the facts because it was all taken care of without my knowledge. But according to a property that I service, a person ended up in the hospital, called from the hospital looking for my information about, because they were in the hospital. They said they had fell and hurt their knee, and there was nothing on camera. There was nothing, no record of the person even being on the lot. But here's the thing. When you're dealing with this, so when you turn this stuff into your insurance, their biggest thing is going to be, let's get this off, let's get this out of here. There was a friend of mine, a guy was jogging down in his neighborhood, tripped over a sidewalk. Guy didn't even know that he tripped over a sidewalk. All of a sudden, his home, he gets a call from a lawyer, a letter, saying they're suing him for having a crack in his sidewalk. and the homeowners turned it into his homeowners, and turned out the homeowners settled without him knowing. I've never been into a court system. I've never, physically had to. I had to go to a deposition to turn into my things to make sure that I was, doing what I was supposed to do for the client that I had, and it turned out I was. I was time stamped. Everything done. The second time that happened, where a gutter had leaked, and the place wasn't open till a certain time, and I was there about 15 minutes later. The person that was there was there very prematurely. Very prematurely. There was really no reason for that person to be there at that specific time, but they were. They fell. They got hurt, and I had an opening time at 8:30. This person was there at 6:30 for no reason, but they got hurt. Busted their teeth up, and busted their mouth up, and busted their head up a little bit, and they ended up he ended up having to get corrective surgery and everything. So I think that was around $25,000 that happened there. So these things do happen. These things absolutely do happen. You have to be prepared for it. And is it your fault or not your fault? But if you're a person who is lazy, and you're a person who's not conscious of these things, at this time, I make sure if all the gutters are, I bring it in, I have the contract, and I state it, hey, freeze thaw. What is your thoughts on freeze thaw? Do you want me here at freeze thaw? Because overnight, stuff starts to melt. Piles of snow start to melt. They melt down towards the parking lot. The parking lot goes in. Do you want that salted? This is a big deal. And this is why I said in the first video, you have to be very, very conscious of how you do things and how the liability, the risk factor of it. So definitely liability insurance. This is not an area I would play around. I told you the story of a very old man who was walking into the bank. He fell, broke his hip, busted his head. This was not my client. This just happened here. Made the news, everything. And I tell you what, that is some serious stuff right there. Do you know what I mean? I mean, this guy has the guy that was taking care of that property is in a lot of trouble because of I don't know if he was at fault. I don't know, if he didn't have the place, taken care of. But I go as far as contracting and liability and risk factor. This can be a big headache for you. This type of thing. There's a snowstorm. I keep in touch very strictly with the people. Like last year, I have a client that has 2 separate locations. And what I did, we had a snowstorm that hit at 7 o'clock in the morning. It did not finish till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I kept going around to that site. I checked in with the president, the CEO, whoever who's in charge. What do you want me to do? Do you want me here every 15 minutes? Do you want to make sure? Zero tolerance means zero tolerance. So if they sign off and say zero tolerance, and you're not able to provide zero tolerance, that's where the liability comes into a huge problem. So going back, the question was, do you really need liability insurance? Is it that big? Yes, absolutely, 100%. If you're going to service commercial areas, you got to make sure that you're able to provide the service. They don't care if you don't have no salt. Salt shortages, I don't care. This place has to be 100% kept clean. There's too many people coming in and out. We don't want any trouble. Another thing is freeze thaws. What are you going to do about freeze thaws? You got to make sure that when you walk in, you talk to these people. It's not about you going in and getting the job. It's about the little things. It's about being able to assess risk for you and be able to handle what they want. Hey, you got a problem with this gutter. It leaks. It's going to leak all day. It's been 36 degrees. By tomorrow morning, it's going to be 20. This whole area is going to be ice. What's the situation? How do you want to, you have some people, I have some people that actually buy salt off of me and they take the risk themselves. And again, that's in a contract, that's in a paragraph just written up. we will handle the freeze thaw due to gutters. Taking a picture of cracks in sidewalk, areas where ice can accumulate, where freeze thaw can happen, and then all of a sudden one of these happen. You have to be very considerate about these things. You say, John, you're over the top with these things. This is why in the first video I said you have to consider all the aspects of risk. This is very, very important. Now, my lawsuits weren't that big of a deal. Insurance took care of all of that. There was nothing to ask. Boom, boom. The insurance goes up at the end of the year. You don't pay deductible for that stuff. Insurance took care of all that stuff. Now, another thing is, this is the reason why I said in the first video that be very careful on how much you take on. Can you get there? This is why I'm telling you this, is because if you take on too much and you can't service it. We had freezing rain for 3 hours straight last year, and I had a slip and fall at one of my places. You just can't possibly be there at all the places. Now, fortunately, that person, they ended up to be fine, and I did do a service call on the place, but when you got freezing rain for that long of time, you can't be everywhere. Do you see what I mean? You can't be everywhere at once. So you got to make sure that you have a systematic way of doing things. I had a systematic way. I said, okay, here's the storm. I contacted everyone. We have this possibility coming in. I will be here at this time. I will check back in here at this time. And I did all of those things, and I initialed it, and I showed those to the people. Very diligent in how you do things. You know what I mean? So between those two time sets, I said, I'll be here at this time. I'll check back here again at this time, and we'll go from there and see how long the storm lasts. But you will get services, but you have to keep in close contact with the people who are in charge of the property managers or whoever it is that you have to keep in contact with. Sometimes things are unavoidable. Sometimes people just make mistakes. They wear shoes they shouldn't wear. They wear high heels, and all of a sudden they slip and fall, and then there's silliness involved, then a lawyer gets involved. I understand those things, but sometimes they're just freak accident. Like 2 years ago, my daughter ran out of Ruby Tuesdays, and she slipped and fell and slid underneath a car. Literally. I just went in. Now, she was all right. She banged up her knee a little bit. She cried a little bit. She was okay. I went in and just explained to the manager what happened and say, listen, you basically need to get your guy out here to take care of this lot. And the restaurant manager was very concerned, and but we didn't sue. Obviously I could have sued. That's a lawsuit, for my daughter's inconvenience. But being in the business, I would never sue like that. Honestly, that I think the frivolous lawsuits that are going on in America today are just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you're wearing an 8-inch heel or high heels in the middle of winter and you're walking somewhere and you slip and fall because of the inclement weather, what are you? But this is what we live in. This is why you got to be diligent. This is why you have to understand. Now, if you're doing homeowner driveways, do you need to worry about slip and falls? Generally, 99 times out of 100, no. But I promise you, you get into the commercial area of this business, you're going to be very diligent. I walk a property completely. Even when the snowstorm's done, I like to go around. I like to, access. Okay, where are the problem areas here? Where's there's puddling water? Okay, puddling water means frozen water overnight. We have a problem here, has to be dealt with. I had a client who had a gravel. He had a nice parking lot, and then the last 20 feet it was gravel, and what would happen was it freeze at night every time. I said, do you want me to salt that place every night? Because it froze every night. Eventually, after getting the first couple months of bills, oh no, we're done with that. He ended up paving it, and he ended up salting it himself there because it was just too much money. But you have to consider those things and then put the ball back in the court of the place you're doing business with. Those are the question and answer. The next video, we're going to talk about some more snow removal stuff. We're probably going to talk about equipment and cost. Then we're going to do some billing stuff, how to charge, and some salt. Great series, guys. I'll get you on the other side, baby.